Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new edition, long time coming, new edition of the Wild Man Revolution podcast or show. I think I'm going to call this the WMR show, just to shorten it. There's a lot of wording in that. Today we have an amazing guest who's been on before, a very good mate of mine, and a man who's adds so much value to the world, but I know brings so much value to our conversations. And yeah, Mr. Rhyn Nasser, how are you, brother? Long
Good,
time no chat.
man. Yeah, thanks for that heartfelt intro. And yeah, I'm super pumped to get to connect with you today. And yeah, man, wishing you the best of the Wild Man Revolution podcast. Yeah, so let's get into it.
Absolutely, man. So straight up, I don't usually ask questions this way, but straight up, what's alive for you right now, man? What's happening in the world of Rhyn Nasser?
Yeah, man, a big part for me now is just dropping into learning to build from essence, rather than ego, just really dropping in and learning to build from stillness rather than speed, and learning to be more sophisticated with the way that I scale, but doing it from emerging the traditions I've trained in. So, for those who don't know, I lived in China for many years full time, studying Taoist in alchemy, studying with the highest level masters and in all the top systems. And I was really blessed to just meet the right teachers. And so, like, my business or the work that I do in the world has to be backed from an alchemical standpoint, a cultivation standpoint. Otherwise, it just always crumbles. And it's always, and most of the frames out there are built from ego or even just maybe just soul, but not the essence. The essence is our Ching and our Qi, which is basically, in essence, what we get from mum and dad, but it's like our sexual energy, our base life force energy that we learn to stabilize, which is what our spirit or Shen reveals itself once that's been stable. So that's kind of like the essence of where I'm at and what I'm doing at the moment. Yeah, going deep into that, not just in the way that I teach, but the way that well, you can only really teach what you know and what you've embodied. And certainly you can, whenever you teach, you become better at that anyway. So there's always that crossover of you just got to start getting in the field and having a crack and having a go and teaching it. But it's not just what I teach, it's what I live and it's what I embody and as a core part of, yeah, who I am. So yeah, man, that's what's alive of me at the moment, brother.
Everyone who's just tuned into the start has already paused it and gone back because there is a whole lot in what you've just shared. And this is what I love about our conversations, the way you articulate things, the way you take us deep straight away. And by the way, if you're tuning into this one, this is part one of the conversation with Rhyn, because in the past, once we go on our tangents, which are very relevant, we don't hit the pause button or the stop button, and next minute it's 3 hours down the track, and we thought we'd just keep you hanging for part two. So get to the end of part one. There's going to be more value into this. What was coming through for me then when you were sharing that about the essence? And I probably just frame it in a little bit of different way. And it's like this creating from like your power, from that energy center. That's how I feel it. Or you could even say heart or something like that. And I know I'm creating from that place because it sort of feels easy. It's like, it feels like it's just natural and it feels grounded. It feels I don't know. Just when I say easy, I don't know if there's anything that's really easy in this life, but it just feels again natural from that place. Do you want to talk more about that, like creating from essence?
Yeah, man. I want to just shine the light on you too, because I just feel your growth and transmission too, brother. Like I'm really feeling like the authenticity and that Aussie down under, we're not here to fuck around, we're here to do what's practical, we're here to do the work. And yet we have this, transcendent side of our spirituality that comes through directly, I feel like from the land. And I feel like it's men that have softened enough to open their heart, because otherwise it's just ego spiritualism. This system's better than that, or this is, versus like softening into, it's like David Hawkins' power versus force. I feel like, sorry, but I'm going to probably just drop a lot of different things that people have to check out if they want to.
That's good. They can hit the pause button. It's good. It's like, what was that? What did Ryan mention? Quick, what's that book? What's that? What's that reference? Go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So power versus force, right? It's like, and for me, it's not just a map of consciousness. Um, it's also embodied in the traditions like the Wu style Tai Chi that I practice. And that is like, you get to a certain point where it's just like driving a car. If you're in third gear, it may have got you to third gear, But then if you're just grinding away at that, it's just like, fuck, why is everyone in the fast lane? Why is everyone overtaking me? Why can't I get past that? And provided that you've got a foundation that's got you to third, it's learning how to shift, drop the clutch, shift into the other gears, and shift into a different frequency. So for me, the creating from that creative essence is knowing your essence, stabilizing it until through stillness and through practices, and then eventually the heart can soften and open, and then it's learning to develop the trust to surrender to that. But my view is that, and this is what I teach, is that essence must be stabilized. And that's my personal view. I'm not against anyone else's way, but from the alchemical frame, it's like spirit and soul, it's got to be built on it. It's got to have a foundation underneath it. Otherwise, when shit gets wild, your true character will emerge. So like, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like the foundation. I love in the analogy that you were talking about getting to third gear, as long as the foundation you built to get to third gear is like supportive and stable. And what I find with my work, a lot of it, I use the language around being able to hold on to your power. But if you haven't got the foundations in place to be able to do that, what most men I see do, they just leak the energy straight away, or it's this up, down, and they don't have the container, the capacity, whatever language you want to be around it. And then they go, well, that didn't work. Well, that's not there because they haven't actually not only built a strong foundation, but they haven't maybe cleared out some of the other ways that got them to that third gear, so to say, that they thought was the way to go from third to fourth to fifth. I like that analogy. I might pinch it every now and then and change it around. Or the other thing I like looking at, it's like I mentioned this to a lot of the men that come into my field, and even the women too. It's like they come to me and they're the little pinball in the pinball machine. That's how they've lived life. They're they get out there, they go take action, they do all the things, but they feel like they're banged around. And like, well, the work, the foundational pieces, you got to like build up from the ground. You got to become the pinball machine where you're the one who presses the button, where you're the one who's guiding the ball, versus vice versa. It's again, the foundation is so important. That's why and for yourself, I've done some work with you, and there's a lot on the fundamentals. There's a lot on breaking down the pieces early on. And I don't know if you find this with some of your clients, we're so conditioned to quick, let's get into it. I want to get the result on like this instant gratification. And sometimes that mundane work is actually the most important work. Do you find that with a lot of people that come into your world? They're like, they want to get to
Oh,
the.
yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Actually, the embodied training that we do, so keep in mind, like I was working with high performing entrepreneurs. I was like a high performing entrepreneur, running. I was the youngest, the core manager, in the world, and for and like running nightclubs, bars, and restaurants, and grew up in that. So I knew how to switch that part on, and then I met a Tai Chi Qigong master, and then boom, I had a radical awakening and sort of went to live in the mountains with the masters, and that became my journey. So there's a guy named Chuang Tzu. He's like one of the famous sort of writers in the Taoist. Came after Lao Tzu, but he's probably like the next dude. And a lot of his stuff is about spontaneity and like counterintuitiveness. So the core of like what I teach in Embodied I Ching is it's like you need to let go of those results, because those results you're seeking are based on your human condition, your survival, your fear. Like you're going to push forward to try to get something that is in first or second gear, feel frustrated that you can't get to third, fourth, or fifth, because the frequency and the vibe that you're doing it is from force. It's not from power. And so that dropping into essence, learning to slow down. And of course, that's where all your shit comes up, because in presence, it's like you have to meet yourself. You have to meet where you're at. And there's state levels of mind. Like this is the thing that I think men are very good at, is we know how to switch on when we need to switch on. If we need to fight or to do whatever, like, not that I believe in fighting anymore. But if you need to, we know how to do that, because we can hunt, we can kill, so to speak. That's in our ancient kind of like DNA. But if you're doing it from a place of like force and survival and condition, and you're locked in on that, you can't see the forest from the trees. You just keep going for the same shit and wondering why it's not working. So you have to allow that place to die. And so we do this through resonance and frequency, the 8 elemental energies, and a container we start off with the body and the energy first, and these 8 core energy frequencies that stabilizes the polarity out in a man's system, so they can start to trust and surrender to their soul. But not their soul in like a woo-woo sense, like a body that can actually feel and connect to that and soften them enough to feel a different type of power rather than force. And so so then the foundation is not intellectual psychology, it's an alchemical cultivated frequency of ancient practices that I put together in a modern way to, because maybe I had that entrepreneur background too, right? Like I was a bartender. It's like, what's the cocktail or what's the song that's going to hit and make the dance floor pop, And this way, it's more slower, but slow is fast and fast is smooth if you get it right. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Just as you're chatting here, and it's like so interesting. I just reflect on my journey, and it's like that. You talk about the force and everything, and that's the way I got most of my results in my life. It's like, and I got some good results. Like I made my first million from force. So I'm not going to take that away, and like work hard, go there, and a lot of good results. A lot of things manifest because of that force. But in a lot of the unwinding of them patterns and all that, it's coming back from not only was it this get away from I'm not good enough or the fear of failure or even the fear of success or there's something wrong with me if I don't do that, the avoidance of that, it was this distorted willpower. And it's like this distorted will. And that's the frame I've sort of learned or unlearned on my journey. It's like, well, where am I coming from? You could say from essence or from soul. And when it's true, and what I've noticed in the last probably year, and you could probably see from the outside, it's come from a truer place. So when I get the thing, because I love accomplishing and getting goals and all that sort of thing. When I get the thing, I'm like, I feel it. I already feel it before I have it. And it feels true. It feels whole. I didn't need it to feel full and true when I'm coming from that distorted will, you could say, that force, that push through. So that's been a reflection on my journey. I know when I was doing some of your stuff too, that really supported that energetically too. And you talk in an alchemical kind of way. And I look back and I go, absolutely. So yeah, I just wanted to drop that in because that's what's coming through for me. I think I get some of these interviews and conversations, I get something for me and it's like, that makes so much sense for my own journey and it's easy to reflect on that. And again, I see it. You probably see it, Aussie men. And I know there's a lot of US men that are tuning into my stuff now, bit different, but saying that we are literally brought up to push. That's what I've seen anyway. And I don't know if you wanted to talk to that. And you mentioned like in our conversations, like this modern warrior, if you want. And that resonates with my work too, the warrior, the integrated warrior. But is there anything you want to add into where we sort of transition with this convo around that?
Yeah. Well, I think a true warrior isn't reactive, he's resonant. And they're in resonant with heaven and earth in simple terms. And they've also learned to balance fire and water, which is you call it masculine, feminine, or yin yang, or whatever it is. But essentially, you got the heart. If you light the flame, it goes up. So we've got a lot of thoughts. That's the monkey mind. Energy rises up in the body. But then water is like the sacral, kidney, bladder, testes. It flows down. And so there's a part of our body that's one part's going up, the other part's going down. And actually, if you were to boil water or if you're on the campfire, right, you're putting, well, you don't put fire above water. That's not going to work,
Doesn't
right?
make sense.
Yeah. So we have to learn to reverse those energies in the body. And so then that way the body goes through a purification. And that's when we start to get into resonance with something ancient, more deep, that's more alive. And so that's when we start to create our power through harmony rather than force. And then we naturally start to move through awakened levels of consciousness. However, because I don't want to make the pushing or the hard necessarily wrong or bad, it's a development stage. And so the personality wants to test itself or get to a certain level of development and push and also establish the identity, even if you will, even if it's not aligned. It's like, fuck, it's better to have an identity than not, maybe. And shit, everyone else is succeeding, then fuck, I better go and succeed too. So let me create a version of myself, even if it's not real. And but if it's useful, that might be better too. And you're learning some good skills along the way, then fantastic. But eventually that self has to die anyway. So the question is for me, like, would you rather go slower? Maybe, you know what I mean? And it's more in, rather than being reactive, be more in resonance. And then in your resonance, it's like you're actually starting to build. It might be slower, but slow is actually fast if you get it right. Then what you're building is long lasting. It has a foundation, and you get to reveal who you truly are. But you have to learn not to hide behind those forces those forces become the sword, or the parts that we put up. We're afraid of challenge, or whatever it may be. And you know, depending on whether a fight or flight more, or freeze or fawn, or whatever it may be. But if we can learn to trust our resonance rather than be reactive, that's really the difference. And the other thing too is that you have to tap in. If you haven't made peace with your own internal chaos, then you'll be out of sync with the trueness of who you are as a spirit or a soul, or even to know your center. So you can't be a protector as a man and to build what you love, even if it's in coherency with your partner or your team or whatever it is, if you haven't made peace with your own internal chaos. And so going into that is a part of the initiatory purpose of learning what true stillness is about. Because the stillness isn't just because you can sit in your meditation and still your mind. It's like, okay, that's one state experience, but then like, how does that stillness get tested, especially when you're open with the heart? I could really feel you in there, Steve. It's like that stillness is at the center of the heart. How does that radiate through as a stabilized consciousness, rather than me dropping into a place that's like reactive, not really resonant? And so, you know, and then the result is kind of like hit or miss. Maybe you even hit the target, but you fucking destroyed everything on the way. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
sometimes the analogy is like Alexander the Great. Yeah, you conquered the world, but you left no foundation behind, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, that ties in. It sounds like you've been a fly on the wall describing my last 5 or 6 years. Um, but it's like that last point you made there. That's how I built everything in the past. And it's like I'd get to the thing, but I pissed everyone off. I had no friends left. The workers didn't want to work for me anymore. The goal that I got anyway felt empty. And I'm like, what did I do it all for? I literally burned everything down to get everything. And when I look back, I'm like, well, there's nothing there. And that's again, it's like these last few years you talk about being in the stillness of the chaos. I think one of the things I needed to sit through the last few years is like deep depression, apathy, the stuff that my system, or whatever you want to call it, wanted to avoid from wherever in my past. And in that, sitting in that, then I could come back to my true essence, if you will, and my true power. And I needed to learn to be with that. And again, you can bring in the nervous system, and the body needed to learn with that, but I needed to learn to be with that. And in that stillness or that void, I was able to go, well, number one, it wasn't that bad. Whatever my system was putting out to me, and my ego and everything, it's like, well, actually, yeah, it sucked a bit. I didn't want to take that action, or I didn't want to go out and do or build. But in all of that, it brought me back to this place for when I was ready to go. I've been nonstop for the last 6 months, and it's felt so aligned. Like people are going, oh, when are you going to rest? I'm like, nah, this is so true. I'm like, get the fuck out of my way. I'm building now, but I come from that place, like I say, where I needed to experience all this other. Again, it was internal chaos for me. That's what my mind was saying to me. It's like, oh, don't go there. No, you don't want to. Like, what's apathy? Apathy, that means this about you. That means that about you. Depression, no, you don't have depression, or whatever other story stuff. But I needed to be with it, and then again in that, I didn't know, and I don't know if you can talk to this. What I was cultivating was this place. I was actually cultivating this true energy or true power by experiencing the things my system wanted me to avoid. So I don't know. I just, everything is sharing here. It's like I just looking back a bit. I'm like, yeah, you're describing my journey just in a different way than I would.
Yeah, let's speak into it, and we'll because I feel like let's give it a frame, like we'll give a cosmological frame to initiation. For it could be male or female, but we'll lean into the male a bit more specifically. One, men have to learn to pierce into the chaos, and that is learning to love the depression, or love the parts of them that they are hiding from, and to go there, and not to have a fear because you're a man that, well, I don't do emotions. I need to be just rational, just the solar, just like whatever. Because if you can't hold your emotional depth or truth, and largely this is conditioned because the Western movement of medicine cut off the emotional body, because then it's easier to just prescribe you medicines that aren't related to the fullness of your being. So sometimes in the Western society, it's like the emotional body is seen as not masculine, and it's like ridiculous. Like, what? So you're trying to say we don't have emotions? Is that like, because I'm a man, that means I don't have emotions? So, but I want to give a cosmological frame here that's useful for men, because you have to pierce your darkness with love. You have to go there and meet those parts of you that you're afraid of in order to be really free. So, and this is what sometimes, again, like people look at the moon as a symbol of feminism. And let me bring this to love. I'm like, the sun is what's reflecting off the moon. It's the solar consciousness that loves through the emotional body, including the darkness, that reveals the fullness of who you be. It's not running away from the feminine or running away from the emotions or running away from the chaos. It's the integration of the sun reflecting off the moon, and many great enlightened men became enlightened with the moon, because in darkness, the solar consciousness beams off the light, but the immature masculine will make that chaotic feminine wrong, like feeling like it's chaotic and it's not integrated, and shun it off, because it's like, I'm afraid of that part of me, so let me polarize in my solar consciousness. But it's like, and make the moon wrong, when if you go out beyond the sun and the moon, it's this great void or darkness that's holding it all together anyway. So
Yeah.
why do we need to separate parts? It's about the unification of both. So I guess that would be my encouragement to men, is like, don't fear your emotional body. Certainly from a Taoist alchemical perspective, the first stage of enlightenment is, you have soul and spirit, but often it's because you've balanced the emotions in the 5 organs in such a way that soul and spirit births through the emotional instability. You learn to bring harmony and balance. Then the soul gets born, and then you're on your soul path now, as like learning to identify. So you can feel the essence of your soul, but soul initiation starts when you decide to make a stand for it. So your emotions and your solar consciousness, it's all weave. Yeah, we can compartmentalize it, but it's all part of a living system that
Yeah.
so as soon as we start to make parts of it wrong, then we miss out the depth of where our alignment may be, our true resonance is. Yeah.
I
Hopefully
like that frame. And what it's got me thinking, I see in society right now, there is a big movement of men stepping up and like being in your power and all that, but there is an element to it, which is making that chaotic feminine wrong. And this is the only way to show up as a man or anything like that. They are talking to the truer qualities of that and doing that, but they basically shaming if the feminine or the chaos or whatever. Oh, I'll drop some names, and I love their work, like Andrew Tate. He's got a huge movement going now, but I see an element of that coming in with his too. Like I like 90% of his work, but I see the other element was like, when you were talking, I'm like, well, that's the piece, the shame piece, or making the chaotic feminine wrong. But a lot of men are gravitating to his work. They're gravitating to that. And it's like, you could call it immature. I think there's levels in this game, you could say. Um, but I just see that as a big thing. But that's what I'm seeing in humanity. At least men are waking up to something, but then that next level that they're doing, you're taking it to another level around. We've got to embrace these parts, like whether it is the chaotic feminine or whether it is parts of us that are orphan parts, like in a lot of the work I do around the embodied processing, that we talk a lot about orphan parts, but we need to embrace them in, like these parts of us that we've shamed for so long. Like, and that's what I was hearing coming through of what you're sharing. Can you comment on what you see in the world a little bit too with what I've shared there? Whether you've been watching unfold or witnessing or observing, I don't know.
Yeah, I've been pretty, to be in all honesty, I've been pretty inwardly and just working on my own my own Shen and dissolving of what I can, any identity that I have. And it's also sitting in the place where, so first of all, like what I say to people is, if you're doing polarity for the likes and for the money, and it's not authentic to you, but maybe it is, right? So maybe it is authentic to Andrew Tate. He's achieved, he's a like a because I'm a martial artist, so I respect
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Champion kickboxer, and he's
Yep.
achieved those aspects. So for me, I sit in a place where I can see the forest from the trees. At least I that's what I try to do. And that means I can appreciate the qualities of a being for what they have got. And then I try to, it's like Bruce Lee says, take what is useful, discard what is useless,
Yeah.
add what's essentially your own. And so with polarization, if you're first of all, I tell people if you're trying to polarize people for likes because you're getting more comments of that, my recommendation is stop. Don't sell yourself short of your own cultivation and development because you're seeking something external that, you know what I mean, like could go, like TikTok was closed down. Like, all these things are external. You're putting all your energy into something that's really just rented and fleeting.
Yep.
Drop into the authenticity of who you be. Then in your beingness, it's naturally going to polarize anyway. I mean, there's going to be people but then the resonance is more clear because you're not attracting people because you're actually being something for an external. So the audience that you're attracting isn't potentially in alignment unless there is parts of that in alignment. So the more authentic you can be, the more that polarization is congruent because you're being just who you are. And so
Yep.
that's the first sort of teaching that I share with people. Then from another perspective, it's sitting in a place where after you've integrated some polarities and you've maybe worked on some parts of your like the ego dynamic that's it goes through being polarized and then it deepens into a place of I need to find balance between these two parts and I'm wanting to find unity. But then it needs to reach a place where you can sit in polarity and not need to do anything and just be at complete peace with that part. And so the world might be going to chaos, or there might be things taking place, and you start to let go of the mind's attachment to external phenomena or responses that are essentially making us reactive. And you're deepening the presence of your spirit, and you're linking that to your soul and to your body. And then you're meditating on certain aspects to unify and ground that. But so for me, it's like I'm not really concerned as to what is going on outside, but that doesn't mean that I'm in this stoic place that I don't feel or I don't have moments where I get triggered or reactive to certain things. I certainly do, but I try to return to this place that is the cult of this was where it gets down to stages and states. So I could take people through this guidance and it would blow their system up, but then all their shit is going to emerge and it's a transcended state, but they've had a radical awakening, but their emotional body and their physical body isn't ready for that development. And so, and also maybe the identity that they haven't completed in their initiation stage, for better or worse, because they could just be holding on to it, isn't ready to die. So then awakening to that greater aspect of spirit would only create force on force. So that's
Yep.
what they teach in a developmental sequence. And it's like long lasting, slower, but it's faster. But like, I would say the first thing is like, if you want to come into my space, be willing to let go of the results that you're trying to seek. You know, that's the first piece in order to really listen to your essence. You got to get rid of those filters that you're conditioned to seek outwardly for the result to feel what, you're not, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
so, yeah,
I like that. It's like the yeah, have a target because this thing wants a target, but you got to let go of that for you to get the target. And
yeah,
that's what I think. It's like really, well, it's the whole thing. Yeah, now trust and surrender, and I think it's one of the most difficult things to do because we have so much formed around that. But a lot of it is from that external. I need that to feel a certain way or to be that version of me. And I love what you shared around be authentic to be polarizing. That's the short thing I got from that. And I think with the day and age of social media, and I've been there, I don't know if you've been there, where we're taking action, but before you know it, you are like tuning into the likes and you are tuning into the comments, and then you start coming from
Yeah.
this disconnected place.
Yeah.
Even right now, I've got a very a strategy I'm using on social media where I really need to be grounded and centered to be able to implement, because it's a lot of external, and part of the measurements of that, the reach, the numbers, the likes, the comments. So to be able to come from that true place, I think that's some of the work too. And I think we live in a day and age where um, it's becoming, well, it's always important to do the work, especially what you do and what you teach and bring people into. But it's like, I think we've got more circumstances on the outside now, the environments that we can find ourselves in, where it can be a lot more challenging these days, because we are hit from pillar to post sometimes until we can come back to that true place again. Not just social media, it's like external environments that really impact that. um, I was going to say something, there was something else coming through then. It's okay. It's all good. It's not meant to be.
It brings it back to I love it. It's a good conversation. It brings it back to the importance of stabilization, which is then you have to take it slow and you have to have a foundational sort of process. And the a lot of the ways to get there are externalized paths, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens when you collapse internally because you're not stable, or that initiatory level brings you to another death and you can't hold that place. So that's why this in the Taoist framework, it's like the first level is work on stabilization of the essence, Jing Qi. The next level is like purification. And so there's a lot of surrender, and there's different levels of purification there. And that's how you access divine will and divine purpose, which also helps us stabilize the ability when you're doing what you love, and it's not for the external gratification, but it's for the deep soul knowing. Then it's the personality pieces matter for a level of alignment on the outside, and you work on that. But then eventually it's not a question of I'm trying to get into alignment. It's actually sitting in the beingness of I am aligned. And that question of, I'm trying to be alignment goes away. And you know that you're in alignment. And that brings a peace and stability, and then the transcendence to be able to see above the reactive triggers, which would, if they emerge, it's kind of like a small little wave and you're a big cruise ship. It's not that big of a deal. But
Yeah.
if you're in a little dinghy and that little wave comes up, it's like, fuck, shit, just you feel it, and you got to hold, and you might even be addicted to riding that wave.
Yes.
That's all I want to do, and that's all good. But if you want to deepen your stability, your foundation has to support it. So it is a I mean, I don't want to, I feel like the call is to cultivate inwardly to stabilize what's happening on the outside. And
Yeah.
that's basically the best work I think you can do across I know that you can do across any platform, is make what is unconscious, conscious in a soul connected way that honors where you're at on your journey, and allowing that to just emerge, and then finding the strategies that are backed by that level of initiation. And ideally that would be soul, but the first stage of enlightenment is you're a soul. So if you're not there yet, that's okay. Like get your personality congruent enough to, like, I feel like for younger men, it's like just it's acquiring skills that you feel that you love or that will be useful or practical in the world. So then eventually, once that personality has acquired, it wants to seek the crown or the shark road to get to the top. At least once it's time to cultivate the essence of the soul, now the soul knows why you've acquired those skills, because it was soul led. But was it the personality congruency of love and what's useful truly leading the way, or was it because you were doing something that wasn't in alignment? I mean, ultimately the soul knows anyway. So like whatever you've done will be a lesson that becomes your own authentic wisdom that you share. But certainly that technology can move through more efficiently.
Yeah. I like how you've tied it into young men or young people even finding the skill, young men anyway. And I see this, it's like I look at, again, a lot of men that come to me, they come to me in their mid 40s or early 50s now, and they've like got a lot of life skills, but they're at the point now where they're looking at their life and they've lost that spark or that drive or that energy. And then they don't actually see that the life skills that they've got, it's almost like their apprenticeship. There's parts of that that they've actually do like experience. I'll give my example. Like supervisor, like did all this stuff in my 20s and 30s, like where I had all these skills built up. But when I left the mining game, I'm like, well, that's gone. That's useless to me. And it took me a few years of coming back. I was like, wow, I'm a good leader and I needed to own that. I'm a really good leader. I learned a lot of leadership skills because my mind's like, all the skills I learned how to operate machinery. Well, that's great. It's good for a bit of Tonka toy action if I want to go and do some work at that. But no, the leadership skills, the communication skills, the personal skills, these sorts of things that I needed to go in that path where I didn't actually see till I come back to and go, oh wow, actually now I can see that that was my soul took me down that to actually get these experiences. And how do I look at that now? Well, a lot of the men that come to me, because I've had that experience, not only have I got the leadership skills and the communication skills, I'm like, well, I used to dig holes too, man. I used to be on the tools too. I get that as well. And then that's the part I understand. And I do see it a lot. Do you see a lot now? I do get the opportunity to work with a lot of young guys too, which I love. This is probably a totally different tangent. Do you get a bunch of young guys coming to your work now? And is that something that you see they're embracing more, that they understand it, the skills they got now? I don't know where I'm going with this question. There's just something coming through for me now where I don't know. It's like whether it's I don't know. I just love some of the men that are coming to me now that are younger, that they actually have the awareness that the journey they're on, even if they're in their early 20s, they have some skills now and they're at the purpose stage already, or they feel like there's something versus my path. I need a lot of pain. I need to like literally lose a mate to suicide and like, oh, I can't do any of this. I need to like perceivably lose it all to go, oh, wow, maybe I'm here for more. But I'm seeing a lot of guys tap into this purposing now they're younger. Are you seeing that in your like coming into your environments and that?
Yeah, I think you, first of all, man, I think you're a good mentor for those guys, is my view from the outside. And like because you know you've had good experience, you've gone through everything, you have great tools that's going to meet them with where they're at. And you know, I think you're a great guy. And I also, you know, I could be off with this, but I'll just sort of shoot from the hip. But I feel like, well, I know that once we've alchemized our pain into wisdom, that's that one of the soul qualities that we stabilize. So then, therefore, whatever pain that their personality is going to go through, they'll feel in your resonance in the way that you show up. Oh, that this guy knows that deep pain, but he also has transmuted it into something useful. So they'll feel like a trust and a clarity in the way that you're showing up. So I just want to echo that back. So I feel like, you know, that's all that I think that would be an awesome guide, because they're going generally they'd be going through their personality, you know, development or stages, and they'd be looking to be more efficient and effective. And but also there is this big movement now of wellness and integration and spirituality and everything that's emerging. For me, like in terms of younger men, we predominantly work with women, but that's just because it's the way that it's happened. Because most men um, fear the soft because they confuse softness with weakness. But there's a difference between force and power, as we've sort of outlined basically, even if it's a thing is between like the shifting of the gears, or like, you know, being in a bigger ship versus a dinghy if there's a little ripple in the ocean. And for me, the framework of that is I come from a tradition of like bodyguards. I was like a bodyguard for, celebrities and basically I came from a bodyguard tradition of those from uh, an elite sort of society that was more anchored in ancient traditions. They had cultivated warriors, shamans, and warriors of high level of refinement, and they were using soft to overcome hard. That was the basic um, framework. So for me, that is takes a man to go, I want to go in. I want to go inwardly. I want to harmonize my physical body, my energy, my subtle mind, my spirit. I want to be a path on that early. And the reason I developed the embodied I Ching in some ways is it teaches them those alchemical or frameworks to work out what they need to work through in order to reveal themselves more deeply as a soul. So we have had young guys go through it and absolutely love it. Shout out to Angus as one of them as well. And there's been others as well. But I would say that for me, I certainly would like to see more young men saying yes to their soul. And it is something that I'm going through now more deeply of how can I, and it's a bit of a balance because one, I'm not here to project my worldview on people that aren't at that stage of initiation, because that would be me forcing something that's not in my own resonance. However, there's a part of me that has this insatiable desire, and it's also the spark of my light masculine quality, maybe even dark masculine quality, that wants it to be useful, practical, down to earth, and really support a man initiating into who they are as a soul, and doing that in a very, grounded and effective and embodied way. So, but yeah, I don't feel like I'm fully there, but also a part of where I'm at is that I will respond. So like it's not about the tactics. It's about if I found there was like a man that wanted to work with me, I would go through the process to see if he's ready, or the questions, I'd respond to that. And if there was an alignment there, I would trust that resonance and go from there. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at, man. But I think you're in your I think you're in your center for the younger guys for sure.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you're talking about the softness. A lot of men are afraid of that, and like I got my integrated warrior retreat on the surface level, and I'm very open about this. People are like, yeah, integrated warrior, the warrior, and there is a bit of rah-rah work and a bit of empowerment and all that, but the emphasis is I teach the frame of like the pendulum. You pull one back, you go into a little bit of the rah rah, but you come up. There's a bit of space. There's like you go in and out, and the whole goal of my retreat is to bring them more into peace, more into softness, more into peace, more into softness. When they come into the softness, then when we go into the power, it's more true, grounded, and integrated. But again, I find in the space, in the messaging and in the marketing world where our personality is speaking a lot and we're speaking to other personalities and things like that, it is a fascinating experience communicating with men in a way that, because I'm aware that softness doesn't really sell to the men that want it. It doesn't for me. It's not the thing. It's like they want the rah rah, they want the rah, but it's also to be congruent with the work I do. It's like, hey, actually, the power's in the softness. It's in the subtleties. It's in the peace. That's actually where the real fire and you can go back to the word essence if you want, because I see that as a powerful thing too. But yeah, you got a line here because you sent me some stuff earlier. Like, most men fear the soft because they confuse softness with weakness. Well, most of the men I work with are big fucking teddy bears. I don't care if they're 6'5" and they've got a big beard and they're there. They're big, soft, caring, heart-centered men.
Yeah.
And there's a very big difference between that softness and weakness.
Mm.
Did you want to talk to that a little bit more? I know you've touched on it a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Like the underneath the yang of the man is the yin, that is the deep, soft core part that's even more softer than the feminine. In many ways, it's a different type of softness. That's why when if we're criticized by a woman, it hits friggin' deep, you know. And if they and because it's like we have a soft part that we haven't allowed ourselves to feel or acknowledge or move through. So then men become more yang on the outside as a way to protect that, because they feel like it's not masculine to be soft, or not masculine to be in your center, or whatever the thing may be. And then of course, like it depends on the some men are seeking, some men are conditioned to attract relationships that aren't from their congruent center, that are just from a dysregulated nervous system or a place. So then they're trying to be something that's not congruent to them. So in order to soft, you find your power, and then from your softness you can find your precision or your flow or your timing or your it's like all the greats are deeply relaxed. All the greats are deeply soft. Like they have a rhythm and a timing that it's universal. It's like it's the same energy that moves the seasons and the cycles. It's like they're tapped into that frequency, and only through softness can you become one with heaven and earth and planetary intelligence and tap into that. And behind us, we have these 8 elemental energies that we work with. So fire, generally seen as the masculine quality, as a yang line underneath, a yang line on top, then a yin line in the center. So it means that the masculine is yang facing, but in the inside they're soft, and they have to find their center, their soul, even their divine monadic or spiritual consciousness or presence to be still. But then the water element, which is opposite to the fire, it has the yin, 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 yin. So women are more softer appearing, but they can have this deep yang energy that's in their presence. So like it's, and eventually, like ultimately in our body, in our biology, we've both got water and fire, and that's, so this is where yin and yang, feminine, masculine, kind of like dissolve into more universal qualities. And it's about honoring the essence of who we be, woman body, men body, or whatever you want to be. But those qualities inside alchemize into fire and water alchemize into heaven and earth, more refined qualities of energy. And then eventually heaven and earth goes back, all these 8 elemental energies go back into yin yang, harmony and balance. They're all natural polarities. And then through that harmony and balance, once you stabilize the 8, yin yang actually emerges as a principle, as a middle ground that we can feel, sense, and know from our resonance. And provided we can drop into our field every day and breathe into the emptiness in the center, we can find our middle path, which is very much that heart-centered congruency. And we learn to trust that. But no one else can actually trust that. Like no one else can eat for us, like no one else can drink for us. It's an internal process that we have to learn to calibrate and attune to, and then all of a sudden it sets like a rhythm. And so then we need divine masculine presence to cut away what is no longer useful, and we have to learn to bring that only happens through softness. The force is a different type of an energy, which I don't in my martial arts, I've got power in my movement that isn't, it's no longer force anymore, because I know if I'm going up against a high level martial artist, they'll neutralize me because that force is clumsy and disintegrated. And like, this is what I love about Tai Chi, by the way. For me, it's like, I can talk about neutrality and emptiness all I want. As soon as I get my hands on a person, even if they're deeply spiritual, they're all of a sudden, it just, their body locks up. It's like, okay, you got the yang period down, but you don't have the yin, you don't have the body period down. So your spirit isn't linked into your body. So then I can find I can dissolve that force gets moved by water. It gets moved by an integrated presence of the integration of yin and yang moving through. And so for me, that becomes a measurable way of being honest with my spirituality, so I don't get too floating up into concepts or speaking about things. It's like, it's got to be earthy, it's got to be grounded, and then eventually earth gets consumed by the heaven, and that's when you dissolve into the oneness or the emptiness. But then you emerge back into a body that's grounded and centered in here on the earth. So that helps us with getting shit done, and then dropping in and remembering we're not that important anyway. And
yeah, I like that. It's like that's the contrast there, just to say, yeah, that's it. You're powerful. You've done a lot of stuff. You've created a lot of things, but hey, just stay grounded. Stay here. No, I love that. I think that's a great way to round out like this first part of this too. It's like, I love unpacking this sort of stuff. Again, you've got a different way of like articulating not only the work you do, but some of the things that the work we do is nothing like each other, but it has very, very similar intent, very different frameworks, but similar outcomes. And I want to finish with this thing. It's been so interesting in my whole marketing research of men and what they truly want over the last probably 12 or 18 months. A common thing, even though it hasn't been worded this way, most men want peace.
Oh, yeah.
Most men want peace. Now, some of the responses I've got have come from they want peace from the chaos in their life. So it's sort of this get away thing, but most men want peace. And I wanted to drop that in at the end because as you're talking about this softness and this stillness and everything, basically what it is. And if most men desire that, that's why this work, the work you do, is so integral and so important. It's like they want the power. It's that it's the force. They want that, and they're trying. I think the power is all force, but if the deeper desire is peace, why wouldn't they do the work to come back to peace? I know it's not a selling point for my work. Come to the Integrated Warrior retreats and do this work so you can have peace. It's like, oh, it's like I want the rah, but deep down you all desire peace. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. You're all about that all the time. That's my work that I'm deepening in all the time, is how can I have peaceful systems in my life that work whether I'm up or whether I'm down. You know what I mean? That gives me a sense of peace, even if it's externalized in a system. But then also, it's also respecting the nature of the heart. So because like the heart is the seat of our Shen, the seat of our spirit. And then often we look at the crown chakra as the divine purpose energy, or that's related to our spirituality. But that means our crown is actually reflective of our heart. And so if the crown is about peace, then the heart needs to be about peace. And the heart's that self-organizing energy. Like, yeah, okay, it pumps the blood. Yeah, it's the seat of the soul. It regulates the emotional experience. But it also is this cosmic organizer between heaven and earth that self-organizes our destiny, that once we learn to surrender into it, shift from third back into fourth or fifth and feel the faster lane and say, oh, well, hang on a minute, things are working out for me. But in this process of that shift, there's a death of the ego, there's a dissolving of the self that has been in control, and there's a crisis of identity, learning to trust in that more divine aspect that's moving through. And in just simple terms, it's like you're learning to trust, and you're learning to be peaceful, and you're learning to accept and surrender what is. But then you can feel it, hang on a minute, there's something here that's building from my center. So yeah, like for me, man, all I would say is like I'm a cultivator and I'm an alchemist. I can't separate what I build from that core, because if I do, it's that's my peaceful cross that I walk, that I don't often speak much about it, but that's at the center of it.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. We're going to do a part two to this. So if you've been tuning in today so far, there's so much in here. I'm sure you've probably paused it a few times and gone back over what Ryan's been sharing, because there is so much depth. And that's what I appreciate about you, mate. You've got so much depth to when you want to. I might be really simple and like I might drop something and then you bring a lot more depth to the conversation. So anything that you're listening into to anyone, or you're watching wherever you're tuning into this, please drop a comment below if you've got any questions for Ryan that I can pass on to him. Part two is on the way. Keep an eye out for that. But just to round up this, is there anything you wanted to add on the end of this part here for everyone listening at home? Any gold, anything you're working on, especially that might resonate with the audience?
I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure here to be with you, Steve. Yeah, thank you so much, mate. It's been awesome. You know, the core of my work is I teach the Embodied I Ching. There's 3 levels to that if someone's interested. There's a 4-week health and energy healing certification, which is really an initiation into more embodied stillness and learning about the 8 elemental energies and the 8 centers and how that influences or impacts our life. Then there's a 9-week practitioner training after that goes deeper into learning to lead a one-on-one soul-led transformational session with a person, but it's awakening who you are as a soul. And that's the only result per se, is you learn to lead that session, but that you actually awaken more deeply as a soul. And then there's masters that we launch in July, which is really a journey of like tapping into a person's core frequency and meditating on actualizing some of those aspects before it. So that's the work that I do. And then of course I teach martial arts as well. I've got an online class that I teach the Tai Chi, and then I also teach a live class here in Sydney as well. So yeah, that's basically in terms of what I do directly, and then just the social media handles and stuff like that, which feels kind of nice that I'm finally being okay with not being so triggered by marketing and brand protection, starting to like, yeah, well, here it is. This is what I have got. I finally externalized something that's authentically aligned to the work that I help steward through for other people.
Yeah, love that. And yeah, anyone check out the links below wherever you're tuning into this. All Ryan's links will be down there. Thank you so much for today. Part 2 is going to be coming very, very soon, where we're going to continue on this conversation. And I've had a couple of ideas come through while we've been recording this as well. Might even kick off part 2 with that. But thank you again, Ryan, for all that you're doing in the world, number one, and for making the time to come and add massive value to the WMR, or the Wild Man Revolution podcast or show, whatever you want to call it. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.